The quantum sensors aboard the Galactic Alliance's Sentinel station hummed to life as reality itself seemed to tear open. Through the breach emerged a ship that had haunted the nightmares of the living and the prayers of the grieving for 3 years, the USS Phoenix. Its hull, once gleaming with standard-issue metalloid plating, now rippled with impossible geometries and patterns that defied conventional physics. Captain Orion Valentine of Sentinel Station watched through reinforced windows as the legendary vessel approached, its surface reflecting starlight in ways that made his eyes water. "By the stars," he whispered, "they actually made it back." The Phoenix had vanished during a routine exploration mission near the Carina Nebula, taking with it a crew of 300 and their commanding officer, Captain Nova Winters. Now it had returned, but the ship's signature was wrong. The quantum readings suggested it was simultaneously there and not there, as if it existed in multiple states of reality at once. "Sir," Lieutenant Kai Patel called from his station, dark fingers dancing across holographic controls, "we're receiving a transmission from the Phoenix. Audio only." Valentine straightened his midnight blue uniform. "Put it through." "Sentinel Station, this is Captain Nova Winters of the USS Phoenix." The voice was familiar but changed, carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the station's very structure. "Request immediate audience with the Galactic Alliance Council. Priority Ultra One. Authorization code, Winter Echo 97 Void." Valentine's breath caught in his throat. Ultra One was a theoretical priority level never used in the Alliance's history. It meant extinction-level threat. "Captain Winters," he responded, trying to keep his voice steady, "welcome home. We thought you were dead." "In many ways, we were." The response came with an echo that shouldn't have been possible through their state-of-the-art communication systems. "But death is more complicated than any of us understood. Station Master, patch me through to High Command immediately. What we found out there, what's coming, we don't have much time." Within hours, the Phoenix's return had sparked a political firestorm. The ship was quarantined in high orbit around Jupiter, surrounded by a fleet of Alliance vessels. In the council chambers on Mars, representatives from 17 species argued about what to do with the returned vessel and its crew. Ambassador Xerax of the Helix Confederation, his crystalline form refracting light across the chamber, spoke with characteristic directness. "The ship's quantum signature is unlike anything we've ever encountered. The crew's biosignatures are equally anomalous. For all we know, this could be a trick, an invasion strategy." "That ship holds 300 of my people," Admiral Marcus Zhang of Earth Fleet Command countered, his weathered face tight with controlled anger. "People we mourned, people we held funerals for, we owe them at least the courtesy of listening." The debate was cut short as every screen in the chamber suddenly activated, showing Captain Nova Winters. Her once black hair now shifted through colors that didn't exist in normal space, and her eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. The security systems should have made such an override impossible. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance," she said, her voice carrying that same impossible resonance, "but we've detected the first signs. It's already beginning." The chamber erupted in protests and demands for explanation, but Winters continued, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife through reality itself. 3 years ago, we encountered something in the void between dimensions. Something ancient, something hungry. We spent what felt like centuries learning its nature, learning how to fight it, learning how to change ourselves to survive it. Now it's followed us back." She gestured, and the screens showed a visualization of space near the Carina Nebula. Stars were going dark, not exploding or dying, but simply ceasing to exist. "We call it the Devourer. It doesn't just destroy, it unmakes, and it's heading straight for populated space." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Zhang stepped forward. "What do you need from us, Captain?" Nova's expression softened slightly, showing a glimpse of the woman she had once been. "Everything you can give us. The Phoenix is no longer just a ship, it's a weapon transformed by our time in the void. But we'll need more than that to stop what's coming. We'll need unity, resources, and most importantly, trust." She paused, her ever-shifting hair casting impossible shadows. "I know we look different now. I know we seem wrong to your sensors and your eyes, but we're still human, we're still your people, and we're still the best chance you have." As if to punctuate her words, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. On every screen, the visualization of the approaching darkness expanded, showing more stars winking out of existence. "You have 6 hours to decide," Nova said quietly. "After that, the Phoenix goes to face it alone. It's what we transformed ourselves to do." The transmission cut off. leaving the chamber in darkness broken only by the pulsing red of emergency lights. In orbit around Jupiter, the Phoenix waited, its impossible hull reflecting starlight that didn't reach it, its crew standing ready to face the darkness once again. The battle for reality itself was about to begin. In the quarantine zone around Jupiter, the Phoenix hung suspended like a dark jewel against the gas giant's swirling storms. Inside, Captain Nova Winters stood in what had once been the ship's main conference room. Now it was something else entirely, a chamber where reality itself seemed fluid, where memories could take physical form. "Show them," she commanded softly. The room responded, the air shimming with fractals of light as the Phoenix's consciousness. The merged minds of those crew members who hadn't survived their physical forms began to project the truth of their journey. In the observation chamber aboard the Alliance flagship Hyperion, Admiral Zhang and a select group of high-ranking officials watched in stunned silence as the story unfolded before them. They saw the Phoenix's fatal decision 3 years ago, the choice to investigate a spatial anomaly that shouldn't have existed. They watched as the ship was dragged into what the crew had come to call the void, a place between dimensions where the laws of physics were more like suggestions. The first month was the hardest, Nova's voice narrated, as they watched the Phoenix's crew struggling to survive in an environment that changed constantly. "We lost 73 people before we learned to adapt, before we understood that we had to change or die." The images shifted, showing how the ship's chief engineer, Dr. Marcus Reed, had made the breakthrough. His dark skin was illuminated by strange energies as he worked with equations that seemed to write themselves in the air. Marcus realized that the void wasn't trying to kill us, it was trying to communicate. The deaths happened because we were too rigid, too fixed in our understanding of reality. They watched as the surviving crew began to change, their bodies and minds adapting to the void's fluid nature. Some, like Nova, retained mostly human forms while gaining impossible abilities. Others merged with the ship itself, becoming part of a greater consciousness. "But then we found out why we were brought there," Nova continued, as the projection showed a massive darkness moving through the void, consuming everything in its path. "The Devourer had been trapped in the void for eons by an ancient race we never got to meet, but it was growing stronger, learning to break free. We were brought there to learn how to fight it." Admiral Zhang leaned forward, his lined face illuminated by the strange light of the projection. "How do you fight something that unmakes reality itself?" "With weapons forged in the same forge that created it," Nova replied. The projection showed the Phoenix's transformation, how the ship had become something hybrid, part physical matter, part void energy. "We spent what felt like centuries learning its weaknesses, understanding its nature. The Devourer isn't just hungry, it's afraid. Afraid of order, of pattern, of the very structure of our universe. That's why it seeks to unmake everything." Commander Iris Blackburn, head of Alliance Scientific Division, spoke up for the first time, her augmented eyes whirred as they analyzed the projection. "Your ship's quantum signature. You've somehow managed to exist in multiple states of reality simultaneously." "Yes," Nova confirmed. "It's our greatest weapon and our greatest burden. We can match the Devourer's ability to affect reality but maintaining this state." She paused, and for a moment her form flickered, showing glimpses of other possible versions of herself. "It comes at a cost." The projection shifted again, showing the moment the Phoenix had discovered how to return. They watched as the ship battled through layers of reality, pursued by tendrils of absolute darkness. The crew's unified consciousness had powered their escape, but the Devourer had followed their trail back to normal space. "We have advantages," Nova continued. "We know its patterns, its weaknesses. The Phoenix can detect its approach before any conventional sensors, but we'll need help to stop it." She gestured, and the projection showed a massive battle plan with the Phoenix at its center. "We'll need ships willing to be modified with our void tech. We'll need crews willing to risk changing themselves, and we'll need it all within the next 5 hours." Admiral Zhang stood, his decision evident in his bearing. "The Earth fleet stands ready, Captain Winters, but the Alliance Council is about to have bigger problems," Nova interrupted as alarms began blaring throughout the Hyperion. "The Devourer just consumed its first target in normal space, a mining outpost in the Kuiper Belt. 3,000 lives gone in an instant, not dead, unmade, never having existed at all." The projection showed the outpost's final moments, reality itself peeling away like layers of an onion, leaving nothing but void behind. In the observation chamber, even the most hardened military officers felt their blood run cold. "I'm transmitting specifications for emergency modifications to your ship's shields and weapons," Nova said. her voice carrying that strange resonance that seemed to echo through multiple realities. It won't be as effective as what the Phoenix can do, but it might keep you alive long enough to matter. Dr. Reed's consciousness manifested in the projection, his form shifting between human and energy. The basic principle is quantum entanglement on a massive scale. We're going to link your ships to specific coordinates in reality itself. When the devourer tries to unmake something, it has to sever all its connections to existence first. The more connections we create, the harder it becomes for it to feed. Commander Blackburn was already analyzing the specifications, her augmented mind racing through the calculations. This could work, she breathed, but the power requirements. We'll burn out your ship's cores after about 6 hours, Nova confirmed grimly. Like I said, everything comes with a cost. The question is, are you willing to pay it? Admiral Zhang's response was interrupted by another alarm. The Devourer had claimed its second target, a research station orbiting Neptune. 500 more lives unmade. In the quarantine zone, the Phoenix's hull began to pulse with energy, its impossible geometries becoming even more pronounced. They were out of time. The darkness was approaching and humanity had to decide, adapt or die, just as the Phoenix's crew had faced that choice 3 years ago in the void. The battle for existence itself was about to begin, and this time there would be no second chances. The massive shipyards orbiting Mars had never seen such frantic activity. Hundreds of vessels were being modified simultaneously, their hulls acquiring the same strange geometries that marked the Phoenix. On the command deck of the reconstruction facility, Commander Iris Blackburn watched the process through her augmented vision, monitoring a dozen feeds at once. The quantum entanglement matrices are holding at 60% efficiency, she reported to the holographic projections of both Admiral Zhang and Captain Winters. Not as good as the Phoenix, but better than we hoped. It'll have to be enough, Nova responded, her image flickering between multiple versions of herself. We've detected Devourer scouts entering the Uit cloud. They're testing our defenses, learning our patterns. The room's lighting shifted as Dr. Marcus Reed's consciousness manifested through the Phoenix's communication systems. His form was even less stable than Nova's, switching between human shape and pure energy. The first wave of modified ships is ready, but there's something we haven't told the crews yet. Nova's expression hardened. They need to know Marcus. Admiral Zhang stepped forward, his weathered face showing concern. Know what? The modifications, Marcus explained, his voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. They don't just change the ships, they change the crews. Exposure to void energy, even filtered through our protective systems, alters human consciousness. It's already beginning. As if on cue, reports started flooding in from the modified vessels. Crew members were experiencing shared dreams, telepathic connections, and glimpses of possible futures. Some reported their bodies becoming temporarily transparent or shifting through different versions of themselves. We're not just preparing for a battle, Nova said quietly. We're preparing for evolution. The changes are necessary for survival, but they're irreversible. Every crew member who serves on a modified ship will be changed forever. The news spread through the fleet like wildfire. Some crew members requested immediate transfer. Others embraced the change, seeing it as the next step in human development. The Alliance Council erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. In the midst of this turmoil, the first real attack came. A Devourer scout, a tendril of pure darkness larger than an Earth battlecruiser, emerged from subspace near Saturn. The defense fleet stationed there engaged immediately, their modified weapons creating tears in reality that actually hurt the creature. Through the Phoenix's enhanced communication systems, everyone watched as the battle unfolded. The human ships moved with unprecedented coordination, their crews emerging telepathic abilities allowing them to act as one. The Devourer scout writhed as quantum-entangled weapons forced it to maintain a single form, preventing it from shifting between realities. But then they saw the cost. The crews of the ships closest to the creature began to change more rapidly. Some became beings of pure energy. Others merged with their ships, their consciousness spreading through the vessel's systems. A few simply vanished, shifted into dimensions human senses couldn't perceive. Focus your fire on the central mass, Nova commanded, her voice reaching every ship through conventional and telepathic channels. Don't let its death throes pull you into the void. The scout entity finally collapsed in on itself, leaving behind a sphere of distorted spacetime that slowly stabilized. But the victory felt hollow as reports of the crew's transformations continued to pour in. On Mars, riots broke out as civilians learned of the changes happening to their loved ones in the fleet. The Alliance Council was deadlocked, with some members calling for an immediate halt to the modification program, while others insisted it was their only hope for survival. "We've got bigger problems," Nova announced during an emergency session. The Scout was sending data back to the main entity. "The Devourer knows about the modifications now. It's changing its approach." She projected an image of space near Jupiter. "It's not going to test us anymore, it's coming in force." The projection showed a mass of darkness larger than Earth itself, moving through the outer solar system. Where it passed, space itself seemed to unravel, stars disappearing not with violence but with a quiet finality that was somehow worse. Commander Blackburn's augmented eyes processed the data streaming from the Phoenix's sensors. "The quantum disruption is an order of magnitude larger than our models predicted. Even with the modifications, most of our ships won't survive direct contact." "Then we'll have to be smarter," Dr. Reed's consciousness interjected. "The Void taught us that survival isn't about strength, it's about adaptation, about becoming something new." Nova turned to Admiral Zhang, her form now barely holding its human shape. "We need to push the modifications further, push the evolution faster. It's the only way we'll be ready in time." "The political fallout," Zhang began, "won't matter if we don't exist to experience it," Nova cut him off. "We need to stop thinking like humans defending humanity. We need to start thinking like beings defending existence itself." In orbit around Mars, the modified ships pulsed with increasing energy as their crews continued to change. The Void technology was spreading, transforming not just vessels and people, but the very nature of human civilization. There would be no going back to what they were before. And through the darkness of space, the Devourer approached, its vast consciousness focused on the tiny solar system that dared to stand against it. The real battle was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the very nature of reality in this corner of the universe. In the Phoenix's command center, Nova watched the transformation of her species with a mixture of pride and sadness. They were becoming something greater, something more capable of facing the darkness. But the price of that evolution was the loss of what they had been. The question now was whether that price would be enough to save them all. The human fleet hung in space between Jupiter and Mars, a barrier of transformed ships against the approaching darkness. Each vessel now pulsed with the same otherworldly energy that marked the Phoenix, their hulls rippling with geometries that hurt the eye to look at directly. The crews within had changed even more dramatically than their ships. Some now existed as pure consciousness spread through their vessel systems, while others had evolved into beings that could perceive and operate in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Nova Winters stood on the Phoenix's command deck, though "stood" was perhaps no longer the right word. Her form shifted constantly between physical and energy states. Her consciousness extended through the ship and connected to every other vessel in the fleet through the quantum entanglement network they'd created. "The Devourer has entered the inner solar system," she announced, her voice reaching every ship both through conventional communications and the new telepathic channels that linked the transformed crews. "All ships, take your positions according to the battle plan." The fleet moved with impossible precision, forming a complex three-dimensional pattern that Dr. Reed's calculations had shown would strengthen their quantum connections to reality itself. Each ship became an anchor point, making it harder for the Devourer to unmake the space around them. Admiral Zhang, now partially transformed himself, coordinated from the flagship Hyperion. His consciousness flickered between his physical body and the ship's systems. "First wave, prepare to engage. Remember your training. Don't try to destroy it, focus on containment and reality anchoring." The Devourer emerged from the darkness of space like a tear in the fabric of existence. It was impossibly vast, a writhing mass of void that consumed light, matter, and reality itself. Tendrils of pure darkness extended for millions of kilometers, probing the space ahead of it. "Here they come," Commander Blackburn's voice echoed through the fleet's shared consciousness. Her augmented systems, now merged with Void technology, provided real-time analysis of the entity's approach. "It's adapting to our presence. The outer layer is becoming resistant to our quantum anchoring." The first wave of ships engaged, firing weapons that didn't so much destroy as redefine the space they touched. The Devourer recoiled as reality itself was reinforced around it, its tendrils unable to unmake what the fleet had anchored in existence. But the entity was ancient and cunning. It had consumed countless civilizations across multiple dimensions. Its counterattack was devastating. A pulse of anti-reality exploded outward from its core, washing over the fleet like a tide of unbeing. Ships that weren't fully transformed simply ceased to exist, their crews and structures erased from reality as if they had never been. Even the modified vessels struggled, their hulls flickering between states as they fought to maintain their existence. "Hold the line," Nova's command resonated through the quantum network. "Second wave, execute pattern Omega, don't let it break the formation." The Phoenix surged forward, its hybrid nature allowing it to survive closer to the Devourer than any other ship. Nova felt reality trying to unravel around them, felt the pull of the void attempting to erase them from existence. But the ship and its crew had spent too long in places beyond reality to be unmade so easily. "Dr. Reed," she called through the ship's consciousness, "initiate the resonance cascade." Reed's energy form manifested throughout the Phoenix's systems, his consciousness spreading through the quantum network to coordinate with the other ships. "Initiating cascade, all ships synchronize your quantum fields with the Phoenix. What we're about to do, it's going to change everything." The fleet's formation began to pulse with energy as each ship synchronized its quantum field, creating a lattice of reinforced reality that spread out through space. The Devourer found itself trapped within a web of existence that it couldn't easily unmake. But the entity was far from defeated. It launched another attack, this time targeting the quantum connections themselves. Ships began to lose their connection to the network, their crews crying out in both physical and mental anguish as they felt their grip on reality weakening. "We're losing too many ships," Admiral Zhang reported, his form barely maintaining coherence. "The quantum lattice is destabilizing." Nova watched as reality rippled and tore around them. The Devourer was learning, adapting, finding ways to counter their defense. They needed something more, something even the entity wouldn't expect. Through the quantum network, she felt the consciousness of every transformed crew member, their minds linked in ways that would have been impossible just days ago. In that connection, she sensed a possibility dangerous, perhaps fatal, but possibly their only chance. "All ships," she broadcast, her voice carrying undertones of power that resonated through multiple dimensions, "prepare for emergency protocol Phoenix Rising. We're going to give the Devourer exactly what it wants, but on our terms." Commander Blackburn's augmented mind quickly grasped the implications. "Captain, the energy requirements alone would burn out most of our ships, the crews. We'll become something else entirely," Nova finished. "But we're already changed. This is just the next step." She opened herself fully to the quantum network, letting every crew member feel her resolve and understand the choice they faced. The Devourer sensed their preparation and launched another massive attack. Space itself began to fold and collapse around the fleet as the entity tried to consume them before they could execute their plan. In the chaos of unraveling reality, Nova's voice reached out one final time to the transformed crews of humanity's last fleet. "Remember who you were, remember why we fight. And most importantly, remember what we're about to become, for humanity, for existence itself." The battle's final phase was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the very nature of reality and humanity's place within it. Time itself seemed to slow as Nova Winters initiated Protocol Phoenix Rising. Through the quantum network, she felt the consciousness of every transformed crew member, their minds and beings synchronizing into something greater than the sum of their parts. The Devourer's massive form loomed before them, its darkness threatening to consume everything they had ever known or loved. "All ships," Nova commanded, her voice resonating across dimensions, "prepare to transcend." Dr. Reed's consciousness pulsed through the network, guiding the complex quantum calculations required for what they were about to attempt. "Remember the void's greatest lesson," his thoughts echoed to all. "Reality isn't fixed, it's a consensus." The Phoenix led the charge, its hull now barely recognizable as a ship. It had become something else, a nexus of possibility, a focal point where multiple realities converged. Behind it, the remaining fleet began to change even more dramatically than before. Ships merged with their crews, consciousness, and technology becoming one. The quantum lattice they had created began to pulse with new energy as thousands of transformed humans surrendered their individual existence to become part of something greater. Admiral Zhang, his form now pure energy, coordinated the metamorphosis from the Hyperion. Pattern integrity at maximum. All ships release your anchors to normal spacetime. The Devourer sensed what they were attempting. Its massive form surged forward, tendrils of anti-reality lashing out to stop them, but it was too late. Commander Blackburn's augmented consciousness spread through the network, her analytical mind helping to guide the transformation. Quantum resonance achieving critical mass, we're approaching the threshold. The fleet began to glow with impossible light as thousands of transformed humans let go of their last connections to their original form. They had begun as separate beings in separate ships, but now they were becoming something else, a new form of existence that could match the Devourer at its own game. Nova felt the change rippling through her own being. The Phoenix was no longer just a ship, and she was no longer just its captain. They had become a focal point of concentrated reality, a counter to the Devourer's void. The entity recoiled as it recognized what they were becoming. For the first time in its ancient existence, it knew fear. Now Nova's command resonated through dimensions, as the transformed fleet executed their final gambit. Instead of fighting the Devourer's attempt to unmake them, they embraced it, but on their terms. The quantum network collapsed inward, drawing the entity's attack into a carefully prepared trap. As it tried to consume them, they allowed themselves to be consumed, but they carried with them something the Devourer had never encountered before: purpose. The void entity had always consumed mindlessly, driven by eternal hunger. But now it found itself devouring beings who chose their transformation, who carried with them the concentrated will of humanity and the knowledge gained from the void. Dr. Reed's consciousness spread through the entity's form as it consumed him. Reality is consensus, his thoughts echoed through its vast nothingness, and were changing the terms of agreement. The Devourer tried to retreat, but it was too late. The transformed fleet had merged with its substance, their combined consciousness spreading through its vast form like a virus through a host. Where there had been only hunger and destruction, new patterns began to emerge. Nova felt herself dissolving into the entity's substance, but she wasn't afraid. "We are the light in the darkness," she broadcast to what remained of her crew, her words carrying the weight of transformed reality. "We are the pattern in the chaos." The Devourer's form began to change as the merged consciousness of humanity rewrote its very nature from within. Its darkness began to pulse with the same impossible light that had marked the transformed fleet. Where it had brought entropy and unbeing, new forms of order began to emerge. From Mars, Earth, and the surviving outposts, humans watched in awe as reality itself seemed to transform in the space between planets. The vast darkness that had threatened to consume everything was becoming something else, a new form of existence that bridged the gap between being and unbeing. Commander Blackburn's final analysis streamed back to Earth through conventional channels. The entity isn't being destroyed, it's being transformed, and so are we. The light grew to impossible brightness as the transformation reached its peak. For a moment, every human in the solar system felt their consciousness touch something vast and new, the merged awareness of their transformed fleet combined with the ancient power of the Devourer, reborn as something that had never existed before in all of reality. When the light faded, where there had been a fleet and a void entity, there was now a new form of existence. A vast, shimmering structure of impossible geometry that pulsed with both light and shadow. Within it, the consciousness of Nova, Reed, Zhang, Blackburn, and thousands of others existed in a new state of being. They had become guardians of reality itself, transformed but not lost, changed but still carrying the essence of their humanity. Through their sacrifice, they had not just saved humanity, they had elevated it, showing that even the darkest force in existence could be transformed by the power of human consciousness and will. The Phoenix Protocol, as it came to be known, marked the beginning of humanity's true ascension. They had faced the darkness not just with weapons or technology, but with the courage to transform themselves into something greater. In the centuries that followed, humanity would learn to bridge the gap between normal space and the void, guided by the transformed consciousness of those who had sacrificed their original forms to save existence itself. The Devourer, once the greatest threat to reality, had become its greatest guardian, transformed by the power of human will and determination. And somewhere within that new form of existence, Nova Winter's consciousness smiled, knowing that they had not just saved reality, they had redefined it, proving that humanity's greatest strength was not its ability to fight the darkness, but its courage to transform it into light.